Carney says that, we have a video of Mark Carney. This is our country, he says, and we decide what happens next. What does that mean? Let's check it out.
It's our country. It's your future. And we are going to give it back to you. For decades, Canada's economy became more closely linked to the United States. The U.S. is the world's largest economy, so on the one hand, that created tons of new business and jobs for us. But it also meant that when things change suddenly for the worse down there, it causes big problems up here, and it's hard to control what happens next. As Prime Minister, my number one focus is to put Canadians back in control by building here at home and building new partnerships abroad, so that we're not reliant on the United States. To do that, we will have to make some difficult choices, responsible choices. Federal government spending has grown massively over the last few years. That's not sustainable. We will cut wasteful government spending. We'll make massive investments in the things that grow our economy. Homes, new ports, electricity grids, the major infrastructure that will unlock the full potential of Canada. We've built big before. In the 1950s, Canada set out to build the St. Lawrence Seaway. It cost us the equivalent of about $4 billion in today's money. Since then, the Seaway has shipped more than $1 trillion worth of cargo to the world. Tens of thousands of Canadians, trade workers, business owners, and their employees have gone to work every day because of that Seaway. We're going to build big things again. When we do, we're going to use Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, lumber, technology, and Canadian workers to do it. Only 40% of the steel bought here in Canada is made here in Canada. We'll change that. We'll be our own best customer, and we're going to sell to the world. Yes, we'll keep trading with the US, but we will double what we export to everywhere else. We'll make generational investments to protect our communities, our borders, our way of life. Investments to build a stronger economy where everyone has a chance to get ahead. And investments to empower Canadians with new opportunities, better careers, and a lower cost of living. It's time to take control of our future, bet big on ourselves, and play to win.
Oh my God. Rod, I'll start with you. I don't even know where to begin. How about the statement being too closely linked to the United States? Have you ever heard such a line out of Carney's mouth that is more perverse and profound as that? It was on this day, October 31st, 2024, when he was still chair of Brookfield, that he greenlit the move from Toronto to New York City of that asset management fund worth over $1 trillion. Mark Carney's assets, I understand, the lion's share are U.S. assets. How he's saying one thing, but he's doing the precise opposite, wouldn't you say?
Well, of course, it's gaslighting, right? And unfortunately, what I've seen is, I have to deal with a very, I guess some people might consider it a very controversial effort topic, right? I'm in the business of advocating for people to have semi-automatic rifles and handguns, so it can be very tense. But when it comes to the government and all the stuff that they do, what they do is they say something that's demonstrably false. They do the opposite. And that kind of breaks people. Like there was a true statement in that video, which is, no, government has not spent at these levels before in Canadian history. That's true. And it's also true that it's unsustainable. So, and another contradiction I think that I always see when I watch a video like that is, here's a guy who is absolutely obsessed with all things green and sustainable. And now he's trying to, at the same time as he's still making statements like that we got to get to, we got to get to zero emissions, net zero, whatever it is, whatever his buzzword is. He would rather ship goods across 6,000 miles of ocean than drive them 15 minutes via truck across the border. Like somehow his green inclinations just get turned right off when it comes to that. He promised a deal, he hasn't delivered. Talking about building big things, not the things that we need. It's really terrible. And I as a Canadian, I was born here, and I'm just waiting for people to wake up and start pushing back against this government. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
No, and he talks a mean game, doesn't he, Franco? He's talking about the St. Lawrence Seaway and the $1 trillion worth of commerce it generated. I mean, I think it's telling that they have to throw to black and white film as the last example of a mega project. But let me tell you this. I remember when we were covering the Pierre Poilievre campaign in the last federal election, one stop was in St. John, New Brunswick. It was actually at the port of St. John. I think that's perhaps the second biggest port in Canada. And Mr. Poilievre made an incredible remark that had the Liberals approved Energy East, this was the final destination for the pipeline. And every day, 1.2 million barrels of oil would be coming into the port. And who were the customers for that oil? The tankers weren't going south, they were going across the Atlantic to Europe. So, develop the energy sector, build pipelines, fantastic paying, good jobs for tradesmen, and generate a new customer, be less reliant on the US in terms of shipping our energy. And the answer was no. Why?
The No More Pipelines law, the discriminatory tanker ban on the West Coast, moving the regulatory goalposts on the Energy East pipeline, rejecting the Northern Gateway pipeline, the consumer carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax, the hidden carbon tax buried in fuel regulations, right? The cap on oil and gas production. You can go on and on and on and on. Like, look, everyone knows at this point in time now that investment can flow to many different countries around the world. Well, ask yourself, if you are an investor, if you want to build a major natural resource project, why would you do it in Canada?
No.
With the government, right? Like, look, Canada should be the best place in the world to develop clean natural resources. We are the solution, at least in theory, right? However, when the government roadblocks development with regulation after regulation, with tax after tax after tax after tax, you got to ask yourself, well, why would an investor decide to come into Canada when they can go somewhere else? And that is the unfortunate reality that we're living in. And it is reality because we've seen this over the last 10 years, right? Where the government has essentially tried to sell Canadians on this false bill of goods, right? Over the last 10 years, we saw the failed social experiment where the government tried to claim that, hey, we'll spend more, we'll expand the scope of government, and that will lead to prosperity. Well, how did that work out? It failed. It was a failed experiment where you had the government spending more money than ever before, where you had regulation layered on top of regulation on top of regulation. And again, it was a failed experiment. We got massive inflation. Our economy stalled while other economies grew, right? Like, at this point in time, government is not the solution. Government is the problem.
Yeah. Drea, to Franco's point of the potential of our country, I was at a Poilievre youth rally yesterday in downtown Toronto, and he made the statement, given our natural resources, if only we could develop them, Canada should be, in theory, the richest country on earth. That's a direct quote. And yet we can't develop it. He also mentioned that Carney on the campaign trail said that if he's elected, given his business acumen, Canada will be the fastest growing economy in the G7. It's actually the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. All the benchmarks, food bank usage, inflation, unemployment, homelessness, it's off the charts. Do you think those who voted for Mark Carney back in April, they're suffering a little buyer's remorse some 6 months later, given that it's, as they say out west, all hat, no cattle?
I would hope so, but I've learned something over the years that is, if these politicians say something with a straight face, add a little bit of music, a lot of them are duped. So I'm not convinced that that's the case. When I was watching that video, I'm like, excuse me, I'm sorry, is this a campaign video for the election? Because it's been almost 6 months since you've been the prime minister. I want to see a video where you say, this is what we did in this area, and this area, and this area, and how we're improving it. Not acting like you're not from the same government that just made all of the things happening. We are buried in red tape. And, to add on to what Franco said or agree with, who's going to want to do business with us? Everybody should be wanting to, but we are our own worst enemy under the Liberals.
No, 100%. And, Franco, to Drea's point of this being like an election ad, you know that next Tuesday, November 4th, that's budget day. There's so much speculation running about. Will the budget not get the required approval, thereby triggering an election? My personal feeling is that you'll see members of the NDP, if not vote against the budget, they'll just not show up in the House that day, and it will go through. But what say you, my friend? Are we headed for a Christmas election?
Well, David, you've been following this for a while, just like I have, right? You know the ups and downs of Parliament Hill and the gossip mill. I mean, speculating about the next election is the national sport here in Ottawa, right? Like, we get this all the time. But let me get into the substance, because I honestly don't know. Nobody really knows. Even the players themselves don't know. So let's talk about the heart of the issue here. And the heart of the issue is the $1 trillion elephant in the room. And that's Canada's debt, right? The national debt. The fact that in 10 years, you had a prime minister rack up just as much debt as all the other prime ministers combined in Canadian history, right? Well, guess who's paying that bill? It's Canadians' kids, grandkids, and their great-grandkids who are going to be paying back that debt for the rest of their lives. And here's where Carney has a real test. And this is the landmines that Carney has to watch out for. Look, Carney essentially sold Canadians on this idea that he is different than Trudeau. Right? You can critique it, but that's essentially what he sold Canadians, or tried to sell Canadians, in the last election. Well, the budget 2025 is the biggest test for Carney so far, because if he increases spending, if he increases debt, if he increases bureaucracy, it really starts to seem like the new boss is the same as the old boss. Doesn't it? Yes, it sure does. Look, the banker was supposed to be better with the numbers than the drama teacher, but all early indications show that Carney is actually planning to add even more debt over the next 4 years than what even Trudeau was planning to do.
It's amazing. And Rod, you know, that was the focus of the Polyev youth rally yesterday in Toronto. Last week, Carney was telling people and, you know, youth, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And Polyev's point is there's no more sacrifices left to make. I mean, there are markets in this country, Toronto, Vancouver, Drea would know this. The idea of home ownership, that is not the Canadian dream anymore. It's the impossible dream. I mean, my own sons had to leave the GTA to go to Windsor just to get their foot in the door for home ownership. Yes, they'll be paying off that house for about 30 years, but the idea of even affording a down payment in the Greater Toronto Area, not a chance given the money they're making. And by the way, what kind of sacrifice is Casa Carney going to make when he's telling us to make sacrifices?
Well, that's how communism works, right? Like, or Marxism, which is, oh, don't worry, everybody will be equal. And it's, of course, it's everyone will be equally poor, other than the handful of people at the top, right? But as far on the contrary to what you might have said, is I think that there are lots of sacrifices still to come. And I think that Canada's young people are starting to see it. Let's hope they are, because they've got to stand up and they've got to help vote these people out. And hopefully even the boomers are thinking, like, my investments are going to go through the basement if I continue on supporting a government like this. I think there's a long way to fall, to be honest. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but either something is true or it's not. And if you look at the all indicators, and this is Franco's domain here, look at the economic indicators. Our standard of living is going to go down dramatically, and it's going to continue to go down because it takes a long time to turn something like an economy like ours around. I mean, there's easy ways to get it going in the right direction, but that takes some time. So I think young Canadians, and not so much people my age, but young Canadians, are going to have to revise what they think their future is going to look like. And unfortunately, it's from voting wrong. So hopefully they can get that turned around.